Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the Accountability Buddies podcast. My name is John, and this week I'm joined by
Dan,
Duncan,
Jack,
Jamie,
and special guest
Alex from the Death Material podcast.
Woo.
That's
So-
obviously not only what you're from.
Yeah, you do some other stuff.
Yeah, I do. I also have been running the push for Beta Garmin. I'll be running the Fate of Beta Garmin historical event at Adepticon, and I just ran the Horus Heresy LVO events as well, with the exception of the Zone Mortalis and Titanicus. Two other gentlemen run those. And I have like an Instagram that I never post to called Crescent Edge Creative, but that's going to change because I'm learning how to take good pictures this week, so I can start posting my work on there.
Cool. Well, we want to talk a little bit about LVO, and since we just did a kind of an EO interview, going through everybody's event hosting previous, wanted to kind of get your take on how the LVO went and what attendance was like and how the events went and everything like that. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. Where would you like me to start, I guess?
Well, we usually start off with hobby progress. So what have you done over the last couple of weeks, Al?
I printed 120 remembrancers on my
Those are
3D printer.
badass, by the way.
Yeah, those look pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks. thanks. I
love those. Are you going to have them at Adepticon?
Yeah, probably. Everyone enjoyed it, so I'll probably just work that into Beta Garmin as well. Plus, I'll have to print some more, but
didn't get into Beta Garmin.
sorry.
Yeah, please. Let's have some extra.
Oh yeah, I'll do my best.
if I gotta do some shady stuff for one, I'll do it.
Right? Yeah, I'm willing. I'm
If I
ready,
gotta do
willing, and
some
able.
shady stuff for stuff, Jack will do it twice.
Yeah,
I'll just add it to my giant NPC pile.
just tell me
Yeah.
what it work. Yeah, I won't go there. But yeah, shady stuff. Yeah,
I'm also willing to make Jack do shady stuff.
Oh jeez, I'm gonna be drained by the end of the weekend.
All right. Moving on from that, I've done actually a pretty good bit of hobby this last week. First things first, not my hobby, but my wife decided that since I've been having to spray things inside the house, she's tired of me overspraying on nearly everything in the garage. So she built me a non-ventilated indoor spray booth. Took a couple of science poster board kits and a bit of foam core for the base and set up a nice kind of spray area. So I'm not going to overspray on anything important anymore. I gave that a try out and managed to get clear coated. Tonight, I got the super ash waste building that I've been working on clear coated so I can start decaling that while we're talking. And then earlier during the week, without nice spray booth, I was able to get all of the ash waste buildings, the Obscurus landing pads, and a couple other things clear coated, so I can start doing decals. I got the decals down on the small ash waste building while we're kind of setting up for this recording. I got the decals down on the landing pads, and then I started applying basic colors down. So I said I did the walkways last time. This time I did the reds for the larger containers, like big oxygen tanks and things like that. And I'll be adding a couple more colors before I go ahead and start oil washing everything. So it's been a lot of lost brain cells this week. So if I'm a little slow tonight, I apologize. I'll try to keep myself on mute to stop the ums and ers a bit. And that way Jacob doesn't have to do a lot of editing. But tonight is all decals. The rest of this coming up week, since we're going to miss next week's recording for the Super Bowl, I'm going to be doing a lot more decals on everything else. So that's me. I guess I like Jack. What are you currently doing and/or been doing?
currently I am drilling a hole in the bottom of a Daredevil head so that I can paint it because I want him to be a white-headed little dude man. See here, this weekend, because work sucks, I have finished the Arqua, finished the Sicarian, finished 3 Praetors, finished some dude that I guess holds a flag, not really sure. English Dave gave me a bunch of like little random Ultramarines guy I got at one point, and he was one of them. So he holds a flag. I'm not sure if the flag's very heresy-ish, but it's very cool looking. So I'm not painting the flag, but it's very cool looking. See here, outside of that, finishing this, what's this thing called again? Not Chronos. Why do I keep wanting Kratos? Kratos, Chronos. It's all the same. Yeah. So that's what I've done. Many brain cells have died this weekend because I just paint in my garage and just get high on my own supply. Dan the man, Dan with the plan, the myth, the legend, heard around town. Dan the handyman. What have you been up to?
Not as much stuff as you put into my nickname. I've been building away on Blood Angels, so I been working on the Volunteers dudes with some missile launchers I got, or not missile launchers, assault cannons, and started working on the jump dreadnought. But mostly just got all the stuff trimmed out so I can actually assemble it and start putting poses together. But yeah, it was a pretty bad week. I did been messing around with my printer. I did a upgrade to my printer and been working on print and terrain, a bunch of Zone Mortalis stuff to finish up my ZM board, and that's it. Did sign up for, they're having a local narrative event at a local hobby store here in Chicago. And so I think there's going to be 8 people, including my kid and I. So he's going to take my word bearers and I'm going to take the Ultramarines 2 weeks from yesterday. And we're going to go down and do it's an attrition event. So they're same format that we ran at Adepticon last year and going to be running this year, or similar format, not exactly the same rules. So gonna have to put some lists together, and my kid wanted to play the word bearers because last time he played my Ultramarines he broke a suzerain axe off and he didn't want to mess around with that again. I'm gonna be playing the Ultramarines. That's about all I got. So I think next we'll move on to Jamie. How you doing? What's up?
So this week I've been working again on my Knights Cenobellum, or whatever you call them, the Dark Angel beat stick Terminators with the great swords.
Like Cenobium.
Cenobium. I can't pronounce anything for
The only reason I'll ever remember that is because I love the Hellraiser movies, and those guys that are Cenobites.
Yep, Cenobites. So I've been working on them and just like laying layers down. And then I right when we were starting, I was actually finishing up their bases. So I was dry brushing, and then I got one layer of wash I'm going to throw on them and repaint the edges because I'm very sloppy on the bases always. And then I've been doing a bunch of resin printing this week. Printed out a ton of disruptor guns for destroyer squads and for some guys in the forum group that needed them as well. Of course, I sprung a leak on my resin vat, so now I'm in repair mode to fixing that. But I was able to not really damage anything on the printer because I had a screensaver down in between the vat and the actual screen surface. And talking with people for Adepticon, and I have another guest that was supposed to be on tonight that's probably going to be on our next show because he had a family emergency come up. A lot of people know him. It's Kyle Kingborn from the formerly of the 40K Free Buddhas podcast, and I believe he's on Knights Errant now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
They haven't recorded in a while, and he went to LVO and was going to come talk to us about the player side because he had a large group from his Phoenix area go to the event, the 30K stuff. So, and it's just good to hear from Kyle anyways. And one of my other hobbies is military stuff, and I've been trying to get together a trip for a couple people to go to Fort Benning. They're opening up the Cavalry and Armor Museum. They're not really opening it to public, but because they actually do military teaching there during the week. So their extensive tank collection is kind of off limits to most normal people at this point, which is a travesty because you used to be able to go to Fort Knox and Fort Aberdeen to see all the cool tanks from World War II and whatnot. And they've moved them all there. But the last weekend in April, they are opening it up for the first time this year for it's like an open house weekend. And so I've been trying to work with some people that I know that are into that kind of thing, that like going to all the tank museums all over the world to setting that trip up. Who's left? I would have totally been for that if I didn't have work. Yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying. I just saw it this week that they announced it, and it's like far enough off that I probably can do it. I really want to take my son to it, but like one of my
Canadian friends that's big into tanks. He can't do it because of work, and also plane tickets are like $1,800.
Yeah.
And then a couple of the other people that are here in the States, they're gonna get back to me on it, but they really want it. So I will take plenty of pictures for everybody if they're interested.
Definitely, I absolutely want to see some pictures.
So who's left? Who is it? Duncan?
Yeah, it's me. Let me see here. I have 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 18 Reavers that I've got the base colors down on. I've got their gold trims done. I've got most of the silvers done. I've got jump pack Reavers who are in that pack pretty much done as well. I've got a new Praetor I'm working on. 3 more Chieftains, and I'm actually putting the last bits of color on them. I've got another Dreadnought or another Contemptor that I'm working on for the Sons of Horus. I've got a Chaplain I'm working on for the Sons of Horus, a Jump Chaplain this time, and a Jump Apothecary that I'm also working on, as well as I have guys for the Alpha Legion that I'm working on for Corrin's army so that he can actually have a actual workable list this coming Saturday when we go up to the Battle Barn for the event there. Because right now, all the stuff I have for them are 2 assembled Dreads, 5 assembled Headhunters, and an assembled Praetor. So I'm literally going to have to assemble
like half an army.
Nah, not even half. A lot more than that.
How many points?
3K.
Okay.
I've got to assemble 15 Terminators, 30 tactical guys, 3 tanks, 2 speeders.
That's a lot.
Another 10 Terminators.
This just keeps getting longer.
I'm trying to think there might be 2 more tanks, but I can't remember. I've got a giant pile that I got to put together for him, so I guess my evenings are spoken for right now.
Yep.
Smidge. Cool. Well, apart from that, recently went up for pre-order was the Trader Esoterist.
I think that was just previewed. I don't think
that was
went
just
up for
previewed.
pre-order.
Okay, my bad. That was our Thursday preview article. So, what is everybody's thoughts on that? I think it's a little
busy. It's really busy.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
It's
a callback to the old poses as well. The kind of I'm a little teapot pose.
It's kind of more 40K-esque.
That's my feeling on it. It looks more 40K than it does Heresy.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that though, because the esoterists are kind of it seems like it's bridging that gap between like Heresy and 40K, especially from the Chaos perspective.
Yeah. I mean,
it
reminds me a bit of that one model that came out a long time ago. It was the was it a librarian summoning a demon out of his hand?
The Terminator, yes.
Oh yeah.
The Cataphracti Trader Librarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of that model.
I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I don't know about using that as an esoterist, but I can see lots of potential for using various bits off the model for other conversions and other,
like a Diabolist or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Basic librarian.
I thought about getting one and using it for the special console for the Sons of Horus.
Yeah.
Is it plastic or is it resin?
It is
resin. It's Forge World.
It's got the hood, right? That's almost like a psychic hood. So there's some potential there for librarians.
It can make a pretty decent speaker as well.
Yeah.
Runecaster for wolves. It's a little bit of work.
I think pretty much just about everything about it leaves a lot of possibility and doesn't really tie it into any one thing that you have to do with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good for a character.
Model.
Yeah. So that was, I get what you're saying, that in and of itself as a base model, it's kind of busy and whatnot, but I just looked at it as a lot of bits potential is what I saw when I saw it.
It does give me a little bit of more hope of something that's actually been bothering me personally for a while, and of the fact that a lot of the actual legions don't have a dedicated command character for them.
I thought you were going to say that we don't have a demon PDF.
No, I'll reference that shortly. What I'm talking about is we don't have generic Praetor characters or figures for the majority of the actual legions in the Heresy. I'll just call a couple out.
Hey Dan, you get Ultramarines, right?
Yeah.
I get Ultramarines. Okay, cool. I don't care about anybody else.
So there's a generic Alpha Legion guy. There's generic stuff for the Ultramarines, obviously, as Jack just pointed out. but there's no generic characters for, say, the World Eaters. There's no generic characters for the Iron Warriors. There's no generic characters for. Yes, Jack. Thank you for showing me that.
There are generic characters for Dark Angels, Night Lords,
Alpha
Iron
Legion,
Warriors?
Imperial Fist, Sons of Horus.
Kind of Iron
Bear.
Warriors. The dude with the power fist with the bolt pistol.
That's Narek Drager. That's a specific character.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff for specific characters, but there's not enough. There's not a lot of stuff for the generics. Like I said,
okay. No, I got you.
Raven Guard don't have one. Iron Warriors, Sons of World Eaters.
Don't the White Scars have the guy with the big?
White Scars have one.
Yeah.
Salamanders don't.
Blood Angels do. It's just called the Sanguinary Guard Box for 40K.
there is also the Sanguinary or the two Blood Angel Praetors.
Yeah.
There are.
But most of those I find are really busy, especially the Ultramarine one. Like I bought them both, but I'm making like 3 characters out of them because they're so over the top.
Oh, I absolutely agree. They're busy, but there's a lot of stuff. There's other legions still that don't have anything.
Yeah. No, I get you.
And speaking as a guy who has a World Eater army, an Iron Warrior army, I'd really kind of like some stuff, please.
Yeah.
I mean,
How
many times do I have to convert the Karn model into something else?
And to that point, Word Bearers already have a generic Terminator and non-Terminator Praetor model.
There's the World Eater one that was was it the Tartaros Terminator with the halberd?
You're talking about the Tartaros Terminator with the really big thing that almost looks like a glaive.
Yeah.
Yep. That was
a generic Terminator Lord.
Yeah, he actually became a type of console.
Okay, I thought that originally it was specific for World Eater.
No, it was just the demo character was there.
Okay.
It was
like
that
in between of a Delegatus and a Praetor.
Yeah,
He was a Praetor Tribune.
Yeah,
that's him.
Yeah, you can get it at GW stores.
Yeah, he was.
That was the big thing for that.
Yeah, and then there's the same thing with the Primaris Medicae, whatever, the big dude that looked like the guy from the Metal Gear Solid 2 on roller skates.
I just keep waiting for someone to, specifically GW, to please put out stuff for the legions that have been kind of ignored, who honestly are pretty popular. Give us stuff, please.
I think they'll end up in one of the campaign books, probably one of the early campaign books, and that's when they'll kind of get refreshes because they took away a lot of the character in those legions as well. So like
Galen
Katie's
Serlac
next and Alvaric's Mom DF, so they'll never get characters.
Yep.
And
Keir Valen.
Keir Valen. I suspect that they'll replace the Raven Guard ones with the like lore characters, probably Bran and Agapito.
Maybe Shuriken.
Yeah, they'll probably do Shuriken. He's a fan favorite.
Yeah, I could definitely see what you're talking about there. I mean, another good one is Medusan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's been them putting out the esoterics like this has really kind of given me a lot of hope that we're going to see stuff like that drop. Now that said, I've been hopeful when it comes to GW/Forge World before, and I've gotten my hand slapped. So while there's hope, it's not a lot of hope.
But I mean, let's just take this for what it is, because this is a little bit of a hand slap too, right? We've had rules for what was it, 235 days, someone said, or something like that, and there's still no demon rules. And just to make it even better, they put out a special character for the guy that lets you summon demons for Word Bearer. So it's a really cool character model, I guess, but you can't even use his primary rules and purpose in a game because you don't have any demons for him to summon yet. So
yeah, just walk around crushing Solar Ox and Mechanicum with those psychic darts.
So yeah,
that
was very disappointing.
I kind of feel like we're back to the square one in some ways and some stuff.
Yeah, I'd argue with that.
Maybe they'll announce them at Adepticon. I was hoping it'd be before that, but
yeah, my big hope for
still got like 8 weeks.
Well, but the problem is that even if they drop it like next week, I imagine if I threw up enough, I could probably take my militia if they drop like next week. But a lot of events do have cutoffs for when they like rules to be legal.
It's usually like a month out.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't really blame them. We all want rules. And we all want to know what we're looking at so that we don't obviously see something that's broken. and
Very
abusive.
ancient with 15 contemptors.
Yeah.
Well, there were some
Um,
Leviathans and a couple Dorados, I thought too.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe they're Deredeos, but cutoff for the Beta Garmin rules are 2 minutes before it starts. So if they drop them at Adepticon, bring them. I don't care.
It's
Wild
a
man.
large army to bring for the hopes that GW pulls their head out of their ass.
Yeah.
200 infantry is a little much to pack into a thing, especially if I'm bringing 8 tables.
Look, if John brings that out, I'm going to have to go back and just bring out the 120 World Eater chain axe list. I really don't want to.
That was a fun game.
That was.
We're just picking up models. Like, this is what I paid $8 a model for. Thanks.
Well, I mean, there's a reason I had a whole bunch of World Eaters with chain axes.
Yeah, we had a blast.
That we did.
All right. So the one other thing I kind of want to hit on before we get to Alex. Today they dropped the pre-orders for next week. There are a ton.
There's a ton of stuff.
Yeah, heresy related stuff in there. We've got obviously out of the blue pre-orders for the bikes are next week. We don't have any clue about cost.
3 per box.
Yeah, 3 per box. All the weapons, extra add-on bits that weren't on the resin stuff, like sheathed chainsaws that go along the hull, and there's a bunch of other cool stuff.
We do know one thing about the cost. It will be less than the resin one.
Well, you would hope.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, so far everything else has been.
Yeah,
I mean,
40 a bike
if a
is
kind of a guesstimate would be what the custody bikes are, and that's I think that's $60 a box. So
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
60, 65, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, there is one thing I would also like to talk about that GW has done that no one has really talked about or mentioned or even known about. For those of you who are out there who may be collecting, like myself, the Siege of Terra maps, the Mercury Exultant Kill Zone map is still available on the website. They did not sell out on pre-order.
Oh.
Yeah, I ended up with 2 because I thought they sold out and I thought it was a new map.
Give one away as a prize.
That's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
I'm waiting to get the entire set when they put them out, and then I'm going to frame them all together.
Well, that'll be cool.
And
Yeah.
I will line my walls with that.
Yeah, I wish I had got on that train. I just got the books.
In hardback,
Yeah, the limited. Yeah.
I have all of them in digital because I'll be honest, I did not want to pay scalper prices or wake up that early in the morning.
11
Oh,
o'clock.
it's the yeah.
Like noon,
One,
dude.
yeah.
You think I wake up before noon? On Friday nights, I'm awake until like 3 a.m. because I have to pick my daughter up from work.
All right. The other
I'm usually at brunch by the time pre-orders drop. Also, I know it's not heresy, but the Arbites are
Yeah, those are cool.
There's those. There's a
With
set
the Vestas boy.
Yeah, there's a set of bases that are going to be really awesome for ZM's themed
Yep.
forces that even come with extra gibbons to put on the stuff.
Yeah.
There's the re-release of the naval troopers that were in part of the
Mm-hmm.
previous Shadow Vaults. There's the specific add-on sprues that I've been waiting for from the previous releases.
For Shadow Vaults with like the gun turret and the firebot and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's
That's the Shadow Vaults. The Imperial Navy guys are from the Into the Dark box, right?
I believe so.
the Shadow Vaults is the Khazar box.
yeah, and then there's the new box, which is Arbeats is Dark Eldar.
Dark Eldar. But they're like re-releasing all the previous boarding action sets, like individual or group of soldiers or whatever individually, which is cool. So,
Yeah, and books. So you're
and
getting
books. And then you've got the dice, which I thought we saw that were like delayed, of course, for North America, which whatever. What else? Oh, pads and upgrade stuff.
Yeah, which ones went on pre-order? Raven Guard?
No.
Salamanders and
Thousands.
Thousand Suns, yeah.
And then there's some made to order.
And I'm gonna buy that Warcry box.
And Warcry.
Japanese monk, samurai, vampires.
Yeah, and then they're releasing the Warcry Skinks and Jade guys separately. The Jade guys make a really cool, like Davenite themed
Oh yeah,
list if that ever comes out.
yeah, it's a good eye.
Got a really cool, like monk aesthetic and natural kind of armors and things like that. Yeah, was there anything else that coming out that people saw coming out that was cool in that? It's
It's
just
just
a page.
There's always stuff coming out, but I don't always have an immediate thought of how to use it. I mean, we've seen a lot of stuff dropping recently.
Yeah.
and that in and of itself has definitely made me a happy man. But I haven't really seen any idea or anything that sparked my immediate, ooh, I want to go do this yet.
I can see that. I think I might get a couple boxes of bikes. There were some characters I wanted to add, like some apothecaries and things like that to some of my other units. Maybe a couple extra characters and things.
I may actually end up getting the actual kill team box just because I already got some walls and stuff, and I'm trying to build out a table.
Now, if they released just that set as like the what was just the terrain from that, I'd do that for the ZM stuff.
I thought they did a couple
Looks like
weeks ago.
Yeah, they're releasing some more of it this time.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a couple new wall pieces in this one that have like blowout walls.
Yeah, and that cool console that's the whole ship.
Yeah, but a couple weeks ago they had they had a box. It was a double set of all the walls.
Yeah,
Like,
so what I'm saying is the new stuff, if they put this out just on its own.
I'm sure they will. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean it'll probably be. Let me think when the first one came out. It'll probably be like 6 months. I bet.
Oh well.
Yeah,
like
for the
that's really going
teams
to hurt
come
me to build
out.
to grab another set of terrain and build even more out for the ZM table that I'm slowly working on.
I will say though, if somebody has a suggestion on mats for ZM tables,
That double box comes with 2 cardboard fold-out mats.
okay,
Lucas has some
and
really good
it's-
double-sided mats for ZM as well. Like one side's infested ZM, one side's not infested.
okay,
Yeah, but it'll give you about a 4x4. So each one of those things is like 1.9 feet on one side by like 2.2 feet on the other side.
okay,
So if you slap them together, you're pretty much a 4x4.
cool.
So here's my favorite one. I'm going to put in the chat. The Fat Mat has the 4x4 spaceship interior one that I think works.
Okay,
Yeah, I really want to be able to do a full up 4x6
Well,
for the whole thing and have like a mat for that when I actually get my full ZM table done.
So
I
the
have-
one I posted up as the 4x4 spaceship interior, I actually have the 4x6, and that's what I use for Necromunda and my Zone Mortalis board.
Hell
Oh.
yeah.
okay.
I'm a sucker, and I bought 8 boxes of the tiles.
Yeah, so
I
that's
can do a 4x8 in plastic tile.
and
I've
I'll tell you, I love the it's the old Fat Mat style, but it's table wars now. It was someone else before when I bought them, but I really like, I've got 3-4 of their mats. I got a snow one. I've got my dining room table always has one on it. So right now it has the alien invasion one, which is the green and purple kind of stuff. So we do so much board gaming. We just leave a Fat Mat on the dining room table so we don't mess up our dining room table. And it's easier for board gaming. So I really like those. I've had this one for years and years.
I may
And-
go exploring at Adepticon and see if there's anything.
Yeah, I would say be careful with Table War. I've had some really bad, like having to threaten PayPal refunds and things like that stuff back to get money back because they were sold out of things that they said they had in stock, and then we don't have it in stock anymore, and well, we're going to get it next week. Trust us, please. And so it just kept going and on and on and on. So just a word of the wise there.
Okay,
Mine were Frontline Gaming when it was them. So I think I bought all of them from Frontline, technically. So
sorry to derail the conversation, but thank you
No,
all.
you're good. We need it. So Alex, I think I will turn it over to you. And how was LVO and what happened?
Yeah, it was pretty good. We had 90 tickets sold for the narrative experience for day 1 and day 2, 74 or something sold for just day 3, which is kind of the mega battle / climax. And we had sort of 76 people show up, so pretty strong turnout, especially with things like COVID and flu and everything going around right now. That's a pretty good attrition rate, all things considered.
bars and casinos in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was a friendly sort of drop in, drop out. You just show up, pick an opponent, Zone Mortalis, which was done by another gentleman, Anton. And then on the Friday, we also had a Adeptus Titanicus event, which was run by Vern. And the Adeptus Titanicus actually still poured campaign points, for the assault on Rio Prime. Which was cool, which was awesome. And then on the Sunday as well, we did have a competitive event at great request. FLG asked us to run one, and we did, and that had 6 people turn out to it. And that's where the infamous picture of the Dark Angels and the Dreadnoughts has been circulating. That is from the competitive, not from the narrative, which is too bad because it got spread around like it was the narrative and not quite the capstone I wanted. We'll talk more about the capstone that I think is a little more deserved, but I will say the gentleman who was playing the Dreadnought list did not play that in the narrative. He actually played a Death Guard list for day 1 and day 2 of the narrative.
So you had a lot of people transferring over from the narrative friendly side to the competitive side then?
No, so I mean we only had 6 players in the competitive total.
Did all 6 of them play in the narrative before that, or did they?
No, not
just
all
came...
6.
Oh, so they literally, some of them just came just for that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think we had 3 of the 6 came just for that, I think. But a few of them did play in both, and if they played in both, they actually brought different lists. So
that was nice of them.
Yeah, exactly. There was a bit of a separation there. And so Friday, we got started on the Assault on Rio Prime. Everybody checked in. They got one of my lodge coins, which you get when you attend any one of the events that I run. And you can trade them to your opponent for a reroll. And if you've been to a previous event, you can bring any bank of lodge coins that you've got along with you. So the more events that you go to, the more rerolls you get, essentially. Almost like a reward program. And then everyone also got a remembrancer, which did actually have a function within the campaign itself. So you were able to utilize the remembrancer and their picked capture device to create propaganda based on things that you actually did in the game. So like if you killed an enemy warlord, you got 3 campaign points if it happened within line of sight and 18 inches of the remembrancer model. So you kind of got rewarded for putting them into harm's way. But they also had to be alive at the end of the game and not falling back in order to score any of the campaign points that would come from that.
But people kill their opponents for remembrancer?
So you can't deliberately target it. So you can't challenge it or use precision shots. They all had a 4+ invulnerable save that could never be ignored or modified. We called that rule Divine Purpose. But if it was, say, attached to a unit and that unit had, say, 8 Space Marines and with 1 wound and a remembrancer, and it had, say, 10 failed wounds, it would kill the remembrance. So sweeping advances, blast templates, and
tank shocking over one to get to another unit.
I don't think there's tank shocking anymore, but yeah.
You're right, ramming through him to get to another unit behind him.
Yeah, then you could probably do that, but I don't think anybody did that. They weren't really actively trying to, or usually weren't actively trying to kill their remembrancers. But a lot of the time people had them attached to their warlord units.
Not a lot
so
of
they ended up dying. But one gentleman actually did kill another gentleman's remembrancer with his remembrancer. And so that was cool. So I had to give him like an award and a mini just for that.
That's pretty cool. I can dig that.
Yeah, because they're ballistic skill, weapon skill 1, and like strength and toughness 3 with a 4+ invuln. So he really had to beat the odds to shiv that other remembrancer. And he like came running up and he's like, my remembrancer killed another remembrancer, and he was so jazzed about it. And it was actually the only remembrancer kill all weekend. But one actually almost killed Rogel Dorn. He like hit and he managed to wound, and then Rogel Dorn made his like armor save and then just like kicked that remembrancer into space. That was in the mega battle because that was the only spot that unique characters and Primarchs and stuff could show up. So we did day 1, 2,000 points. I really sought out to empower the players at this event. So instead of doing what I normally do, which is I create 2 sets of missions, 1 set for loyalists, 1 set for traders, and I kind of force them through a narrative in the missions. I was starting to do that again. I got like 4 missions done. And then I was like, how many times can I realistically write we're going to like land on a planet and fight each other and then leave and make it unique? So I can't remember who actually had the idea, and I kind of jacked it from somebody of being able to choose your primaries from the books or from the missions in the book. So I hijacked that idea and put it in, and that was the way that you earned victory points. Victory points obviously determining whether you win or lose, and then they could choose their secondary objectives, choose 2 secondary objectives each game. So I broke the first day into the primary objectives of Shatter Strike, Onslaught, and what was the other one? You know what? Let me pull the thing up here. I did have it open, but I had to restart my computer. Tide of Carnage. So all of these kind of could be utilized to help represent initial landing on the planet, securing supply lines, securing landing zones, securing forward operating bases, and getting started. So they had 3 games on the first day, and they could choose each one of those missions only once. And I think it actually had a bit of a balancing effect against most other lists, because we've all been playing this a long time, and there's always that scenario where you happen to be paired up on the perfect table against the perfect opponent playing the perfect mission, where it's like 10-1 odds that you can pull this off. And then, it's kind of like, oh my God, this is annoying, and you don't have as much fun. But if you can determine what mission you're going to play, and you can decide that when you see who your opponent is and the table that you're on and all those things, it helps mitigate that a little bit. But we kept it hidden. So I gave everyone a sheet of paper, which was the campaign contribution record. And they were able to write down for each engagement what their primary objective was and their 2 secondaries. Now, they could choose the secondaries again in other games. So you could take, say, Slay the Warlord every game, but you couldn't take Slay the Warlord twice in one game. But they did have the choice of the mission secondaries, which was Slay the Warlord, Attrition, Last Man Standing, The Price of Failure, or First Blood. But I also created 2 full suites of loyalist objectives and traitor objectives for every faction and legion that is in those respective allegiances. And those have either or condition. So, like, for example, if you were a traitor Dark Angels, you would earn 1 campaign point if you defeated a loyalist Dark Angel, or if you killed more dreadnoughts, automata, or monstrous creatures, kind of calling back to the lineage of monster hunting on Caliban. And so again, it's not something you have to use, but it's something that you can use to empower to get as little or as much out of this experience as you want. And again, it remained hidden from your opponent. So they played that through day 1 for landing party. We had deployments that would kind of, again, fit that narrative, and people could kind of create their own narrative at the day of the game. And then they would use the Remembrancer to gain additional campaign points, with campaign points coming from the secondaries. And if they happen to win, which the primary objectives would determine, if you won, you got 3 campaign points. If you tied, you got 2 campaign points. If you lost, you got 1 campaign point, because even if you lose, you still have an effect on the war effort overall, just like you would have in a real conflict. And then day 2, same sort of thing, but we went up to 3,000 points. So you saw a little more Lord of War, little juicier stuff, and they had the options of Blood Feud, Dominion, and War of Lies. And so some folks played 2 games, some folks played 3, because it's Vegas and we're starting to get a little tired. But before we started on day 2, we tallied up the campaign points from the first day, and the Traitor Titans did a lot of heavy lifting on day 1 over in the Titanicus event. And so the Traitors had a bit of a lead, somewhere around 80 points or so, 80 campaign points or so. So, I figured that deserved a little bit of a reward. So we started the day off with a small advantage for the traders, but not one that was game breaking. And being that it's Vegas and a hub of gambling, I thought it was appropriate to have a bit of a gamble. So before any initiative steps or deployment zones or anything else are determined, the traders had the option of having +1 to their seize the initiative rolls, or +1 to their reserve rolls. And they had to declare that at the beginning of the match before anything else had been done. So if they're like, man, I really need to go first, then you would gamble on going first. And the Loyalists actually came back by the end of the day, and they came back by almost 100 campaign points. So the Loyalists, even on the back foot, really rallied and pushed through and came forward. So as we got started on day 3, which was the mega battle, and we had all the sort of big happening, the Loyalists would then get a little bit of a bonus. And so day 3 was the most exciting day for me, I think. And part of that was actually with the help of Kyle, who I think is going to be on our next show probably, and he'll talk about the player's perspective. And Kyle was kind enough to bring a 6x4 Zone Mortalis table, and another gentleman, Josh, also brought a 6x4 Zone Mortalis table. So we slapped them together to make a ship that was in orbit above the mega battle tables. And the Loyalists, in exchange for rallying and coming out ahead, got reinforced with an Imperator class Titan. So Vern, the gentleman who ran the AT event, has a scratch built Imperator class Titan, which he brought out, and he brought the old rules that they published in like the first edition Apocalypse. And it was awesome to see like all 7 of the dudes at the table like working together to bring those rules up to an acceptable level for Heresy 2.0. And then they proceeded to play through that. And that was a really cool one, because the table he reinforced had 4 traders on it, but only 2 loyalists. So they were heavily outgunned, and their whole thing was like, we just have to hold on until the reinforcements get here. And I was like, the reinforcements get here at noon, so like you have to hold on until noon. And they managed to do it. While Kyle and a couple of his group and a couple of dudes from Edmonton, including Craig, my co-host on the Death and Betrayal podcast, played in the Mega ZM, which we used as, since it was mostly Kyle's board, it was a word bearer ship because Kyle was playing his word bearers. And this was my favorite part of the week, when the loyalists actually beat the word bearers and the Sons of Horus, and I can't remember who else was on the trader side, in the Zone Mortalis. I said, come and see me. And so they came and they said, you guys got a choice. And they said, okay. I said, you can scuttle the ship, which will result in the ship exploding in orbit and debris raining down, which will result in like 9-inch, strength 14, AP1 scatter hits on each table. Said, or you can crash the ship into the planet, and that will allow you to basically choose a trajectory from the front of the room, and then everything along that trajectory, as many tables as it cuts through, everything in 12 inches on either side of that line will take that strength 14 AP1 hit, and any table that does not get crossed through will get hit with debris. And so they were like, let's crash it into the table.
Heck yeah.
Let's crash it into the planet, I should say. So I didn't interfere. I let them choose their trajectory, and they didn't think to ask whose side the Imperator Titan was on. So they crashed it into the Imperator Titan, like head on into it, and didn't quite kill it, but damaged it heavily. And they carved a nice big thing through that. And by the end of the day, the Loyalists still hung on, but we'll use the events of that final battle to kind of influence what happens, next year if Frontline Gaming still wants me to run it. And from there, I mean, that's the synopsis of what we had going on. And like I said, we had 76 dudes that came to play. We had no awards for performance. We did have one sort of quote unquote big award, which was the Remembrancers Lifetime Achievement Award. And that was kind of a Venn diagram of total campaign points, the number of campaign points generated by your Remembrancer, if you had any votes for Best in Show, which is, similar to Best Painted. And then if you had any votes and how many of those votes for Best Loyalist or Best Trader, depending on your allegiance. And so the same guy who had his Remembrancer murder another Remembrancer actually won that Remembrancer's Lifetime Achievement Award as well. So he got, which was very kindly donated on behalf of, or from GW, he got a nice horse ascended to send him off.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
Very nice.
Wrong with that?
Yeah. So it was cool to see. They actually gave us a ton of prizes, about $800 Canadian worth, so $650 American, including that horse ascended and a number of like heresy vehicles and characters, Tartarus Terminators, things like that. So yeah, it was pretty cool. We had a lot of prizes out there.
Nice
But
to see
yeah.
you doing that finally for Heresy.
Yeah, exactly. It was cool. Like that was where their focus was for the weekend, was they wanted to put the prize support into the narrative. So I think it shows that, this is where they want Heresy to live and grow and continue to grow, and then they can focus their sort of competitive match play efforts on 40K, which is doing rather well with that at the moment.
I am personally very glad to see GW supporting the Heresy hobby at events and giving out like Heresy appropriate stuff. That seriously just kind of made my day hearing that.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Yeah. I mean, they helped out a little bit last year as well in 2022, but not nearly to the same degree. I think they kind of wanted to use last year as like a testing ground. So they gave us like the Heresy event only characters and stuff to give away last year. But as I was talking to them this year, and they were like, cool, so like we want to give something big this time. And then they actually came back to me later, they came back later and said like, hey, do you want more prizes? So as they saw like all the excitement and the people loving it and going through the weekend, they were like, hey, yeah, you know what, let's support this more. And so it was like,
Nice.
do you want more prizes? And I said, yeah. If you want to give me more, I'll take more. But I don't want to ask for more because you already gave me a lot in Horus Ascended. And he was like, yeah, come with me. And so we went and filled it up, and yeah, it was killer. It was awesome. And then my other highlight was giving that guy the Horus Ascended, because at my events I don't really dictate what prize goes with what typically. So I've got like a table of prizes, and you kind of get to come up and choose. And then once I get down into door prizes, it's the same thing. I draw your name, you get to come up and choose. So he's walking up to come choose his prize, and he's kind of eyeing some of the heresy stuff. And I go, oh, hey, hang on. I said, this is a very prestigious award that you've just won, and that requires a very prestigious prize. And he kind of looks confused and almost a little bit worried that he's going to be disappointed. And then I took like the giant box that is Horus Ascended. So it's about 2 times the size of a normal Primarch box.
Wow.
And I was like, you get a Horus Ascended for this. And I swear he looked like I just gave a child an N64 on Christmas in 1997. And just like seeing his face for that, I was like, yeah, this was worth it. Cool, man. Like, come get it. Get out of here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, scamp.
Awesome.
Was he?
Are those even out? Like
Horus
like,
Ascended?
to the public?
Just-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they shipped like either the week they were either delivered like the weekend of LVO or the weekend before.
Okay.
Was he possibly a traitor and or Sons of Horus player?
No, he was an Emperor's Children player, but his Remembrancer killed another Remembrancer, and his Fulgrim killed Valdor. So he was just having a killer weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
And
now
he's starting a Sons of Horus.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yes.
say now he's
Yeah.
starting to Sons of Horus.
That
Yeah.
was the whole deal that Caleb had his Horus Ascended, and what's
His case stolen.
He had his whole
case
case
stolen because he hadn't been able to post pictures of any yet, because that was supposed to be the weekend when like one of those models is the GW like event display model that's going to go on the GW booth where they're selling everything, and somehow or another they stole them out of the freaking.
They stole his whole miniature case and like right out of the GW booth.
Yep.
And he had Horus Ascended. He had the new Angron model in there, and probably some other.
Did it ever get found or no?
Not that I know of.
I hadn't seen anything posted online from him saying that they had found it or so.
No.
I think there was 3 models he had in there.
Yeah, I can't remember what the third one was, but yeah,
Yeah.
just bit of a sour note for that. But the only other thing that I had kind of done was I originally had restrictions that kind of forced people to have to bring infantry, and I got kind of really abused about it. Is the short version. And I ended up relenting, and I compromised. I said, okay, well, we'll do Armored Breakthrough and Night Houses and Fury of the Legion in kind of their own bracket against each other. And after all of that, out of 76 players, I had 1 Knight player and 1 Fury of the Ancients list. And that was an Alpha Legion player. And he had mixed in like regular box knots and stuff. So like, nobody complained about him, but the Knight player came with Kyle, and I feel quite bad because he built his list to fight other Night Houses. So his list was actually pretty nasty, but it's not the list that he would have brought if he didn't think he was fighting regular Knights. And I was like, you know what, man, like I kind of figured we were going to have this and like, or have like a ton of people based on the outcry and the messages in my inbox. And then none of them ended up showing up. So I feel bad for him. And I know one person he played was like pretty chapped about it. They complained about the Remembrancer mechanic and was like, I don't understand how one Remembrancer can affect a war effort. And I was like, well, it's through propaganda, but I'm not going to rationalize it because nothing I say is going to convince you to that you had a good time. So like, sorry you didn't enjoy it, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but 75 out of 76 is pretty good. Other than that, it was I'd say it was a success. I'd call it a success. I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. I couldn't have pulled it off without Craig because I'm dealing with like Achilles tendonitis. So he was doing as much running around for me as he possibly could. And that was a huge help. And I wouldn't have been able to kind of mentally run the competitive tournament on the Sunday at the same time that I was sort of DMing, whatever you want to call it, the mega battle stuff. And so he did the manual way that way because we tried to use best coast pairings, but it just kept crashing because of the 40K champs. And so we just did it manually on a piece of paper. which I guess was the nice advantage of only having 6 players. But yeah.
So how'd the competitive go?
I mean, it was fine. The Dark Angels player won in that picture. The Fury of the Ancients list placed 3rd, and a Day of Revelation list with Sisters of Silence allies won 2nd place.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and I'm putting you on the spot with this question, but what do you think the army breakdown was as far as, you know, legions, and do you have any custodies players or
in the narrative?
In the narrative.
Yeah. So I don't have like an actual, like, you know, we had this many of these armies, and there's a couple that stood out, like, you know, the one Knight army, the one Fury of the Ancients from the Alpha Legion. We had a number of Loyalist Alpha Legion players actually, and we had a few Traitor Dark Angels players, which was something of note. Yeah, and you know, a few Blood Angels players. We had 2 Custodian lists. One of them actually won Best in Show, which I think is one of Kyle Kinghorn's guys.
Okay.
Actually. But yeah, and you know, no one was really upset about playing them, or they didn't feel like they were getting steamrolled really. But again, that I think having the empowerment to choose your missions has a lot of effect on the perception that they're there, right? Because it's a little bit less of like, well, I can't blame the event because I chose them.
And you didn't really you said there was only like one Fury of the Ancients list. I'm impressed by that.
Yeah. You know, everyone else like really kind of played to the spirit of the event. They understood the spirit of the event, and they brought cool. There's another guy, Colton, and like Colton's been in his group has been heavy in the push for Beta Garmin. So you know he was at LVO last year. So I came up to chat with him again this year, and I was like, oh, you don't have suzerains in your Ultramarine list? And he's like, well, I had suzerains, but as I've been playing for the push for Beta Garmin, I was playing a boarding action and they all died to a man, so they're dead. I don't have any anymore. Like, so he didn't bring them. Right, so he like replaced them with like a command squad or a veteran squad to kind of step into that role for his Praetor. As their honor guard. And I was like, hey, yeah, man, like that's dedication. And then actually Colton went on to win the Savior of Rio Prime, which is the favored loyalist.
I'm really impressed with the turnout for y'all. It sounds like it was a really, really good event.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to know, did you, with the size of everything, did you get a chance to get everyone in who wanted to play?
Yeah. Everyone who wanted to play at LVO got to play. We scrambled last minute. There was a couple of issues with tables that were supposed to show up and didn't, and we managed to scrape them together. And then we didn't receive as much terrain as we were promised, and that's not just me, that's FLG. And so we had to share that with the 40K friendlies and the 40K narrative. So after we got first pick and we built our tables up, but then they needed a little bit more, so they stole off of some of the tables. And then once we knew we didn't have 90 people, I was able to kind of go back and bulk up some of those tables with the terrain from the tables that we weren't going to need now. But we did get like a firm commitment that they were like, dude, like we want this to go. So if you got 150 tables next year, like we'll hand paint 150 tables worth of terrain for you.
That's
like
awesome.
we'll make sure that like no table is not dense enough.
I mean, I know I saw comments online from people kind of being snarky and stuff, and I was like, you know, I know we were talking with you a bit during the event, and you let us know what was going on. So I mean, I get it, and I also, you know, I'm happy that y'all were able to like kind of mitigate or treat, you know, fix the situation like in the second round then.
Yeah, and actually I fixed it like partway through the first round. So
Okay.
I kind of gave people the option. I was like, you haven't started yet. You want me to bulk up your table? And I had a few people say no. Like we're already deployed, so we don't want to. And I was like, okay, like, you know, whatever.
Cool.
But it wasn't the vast majority of tables that were subpar either.
Okay.
Like you know, in most cases it was at most a small building would have been the only thing left to get on there.
Yeah.
So we had quite a few tables that were properly populated, but the ones that were closest to the 40K stuff got a little bit looted because we didn't want to use any of the orc terrain stuff. So they used all the orc terrain first and then came and borrowed. from us kind of as they needed. And then again, once stuff like opened up, we bulked up a little bit, and just continued to go from there. So we made do with what we had on hand. But like I said, I know that there was like a physical table issue too, and FLG ended up like running to their warehouse and just grabbing like all of their gaming tables that they sell, like that's supposed to be like for sale product, and
Right.
started like deploying those over the event. So yeah, it definitely would have been more stressful for the FLG guys, but we pulled it off decently well, and next year we've got an even stronger commitment to make it
That's
up.
awesome. That's truly awesome. In keeping with that, from the even stronger commitment you've gotten, do you think, based on your experience with GW and everything, that they are going to want to go hard in the paint, as it were, regarding heresy and supporting it going forward?
Yeah, so
like
I mean,
big events.
yeah, well, so they do have like one narrative event in the like in their US Open tour.
Yeah, I think it's like
It's in
Tacoma or something
Atlanta.
like that.
I think it's in Atlanta. Yeah. And and they were like we're doing it there as kind of a test market. But they want it to be a narrative thing. They don't want it to be a tournament. And they've got like campaign books planned. They've got tons of new plastics planned, like which we've been hearing for quite some time, but they confirmed it again at the preview. And it was like every generic Legion thing is going to get a plastic version. Like this wasn't just a one-off to like get heresy people to shut up. Like, and you can verify that with the shareholder reports. Like it's in
like
their
number
main
3. I mean, it's like it's kind of moved into the number 3 slot, if not the number 2 slot from the shareholder.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think the guy's name was Ben, and I'm sorry, I can see your face, man. I just can't. I met so many people over this weekend that names are starting to blend together. But like he came up and and I'd recognized him, so I was like, you were here last year, right? And he's like, kind of. Like I came and talked to you for like 25 minutes last year. So he came to see what we were doing in 2022, thought it was so rad that he bought into Heresy and came to play that at LVO instead of the 40K champs.
Nice.
That's awesome. I love seeing that happen.
Yeah. So and I must have been doing a good job based purely on the fact that in the week since we finished, we've had like 14 new members to the LVO Facebook page.
Well, I know a lot of people are very impressed by the turnout I've seen in different groups and stuff like that, and a lot of people kind of like, if they were going to go to Adepticon or LVO this year, they kind of all, if they didn't go to LVO this year, they kind of were all planning on Adepticon. I've seen a lot of people saying that they kind of want to go to LVO now, just because of how big the turnout was for it this year.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Like it warms my heart to hear that, because I mean it was dropping year over year, and kind of had that perception of like, this is ultra comp heresy. Like if you go, you're just gonna get stomped. So unless that's what you want to do, don't go.
Well, I know, like talking with Dan and Zach and stuff about Adepticon, that the attendance had it had been dropping down and like over the previous years and stuff like that. So, and then like with the new box set and kind of all the plastics, I don't know if, I'm assuming it's growing back up if it hasn't passed where it was before.
Yeah, 100%. But it's a very strong opportunity to demonstrate a different way to play.
Yep.
Tabletop games in general.
Yep.
Right? By showing them this, like, and so that's why the whole time I was calling it the narrative experience, and it wasn't the narrative event or the friendly event, or it was like, this is a narrative experience. And so if you bought like the $150 full package from LVO, it was literally called the LVO like Horus Heresy narrative experience package. So you can come and play all 3 days, and you get objectives, and you get like a pint glass and a t-shirt and all this like LVO swag to come and experience a narrative event, and be part of it instead of just play through it.
So I got to jumping off of that. So, you had 96 spots originally sold, and I don't know if you had a limit or whatever, but what's your take on, if it went up 40 or 50% next year, and when you're selling tickets you had that much, would you still try and keep it as one big huge event, or would you consider breaking it up?
I to be honest with you, I'd probably just keep it as one big event. I used Google Forms this year to help me manage it, and QR codes, so that I didn't have to print really anything except for campaign contribution records. So I did it all, like basically all digital. and for pairings, like you're gonna laugh, like, but I didn't have to use a spreadsheet or anything for pairings. I literally just like had everyone line up, like loyalists on one side, traders on the other, and we just paired off, and you went and found a table and played.
Yeah.
And we did that with 76 people, and it worked great. And then you started getting like rivalries forming, because it's like, you know what, I played you yesterday, but I want to rematch at 3,000 points, like, so come here, right? You had people like pairing off in advance, being like, well, you know what, we got a score to settle, so we're gonna do that, right? And then you start seeing like whole new dynamics come out of it, when you're not forcing people to play certain people. And it honestly worked good. Like, great. The advice that I received on that was they loved it, but let's do it out in the hallway next time, because then it's just easier to hear. So we'll shift out into the hallway next year, just for pairings, and then everyone pairs off, they walk inside and they have a game, and then they input their scores at the end of the day, their campaign contributions at the end of the day through the Google form, which allows me to quickly analyze, see who's leading, who's doing what, and then I can sort of, I've got like a flow chart basically of like if then, which kind of guides my thought process on what's going to happen where and what advantages they get for leading, and etc., to help continue to roll the narrative as we're moving forward.
If there was one thing you could change about the event you just held, what would it be?
That's tough. I definitely know how to make my Google Forms more efficient for next time, but I kind of wish I just would have stuck to my guns on the list building restrictions, because they were very similar to what I had done the year before in 2022, and it worked great. It's because, again, like, there was, short of having people submit lists, which, then it makes things difficult. Like if we get a new exemplary unit, which, if somebody's willing to hammer it out in a week and convert it and paint it up and get it table, like, get it ready for their army, like, I think they should be able to do that, because we're not playing a competitive game. So in my mind, why does it matter if they have a month to learn the competitive, the competition's rules or not? We're all adults, and we're playing and being honest with the unit that we're playing. I certainly don't know every Legion's special units, special rules, even though they've been out for 200 and whatever days. So for me, that's why, I'd let you use a unit as, if it came out the day before, but you have it built and painted, then more power to you.
I still don't know the difference between a Myrmidon and a Thalix and a Secutar or whatever else that.
And
that's been out for
a Secutor is a type of Myrmidon. So you have Myrmidon Secutors and Myrmidon Destructors, and then a Thalax is the like coolest skull and a spinal column inside of a combat chassis with a lightning gun.
Yeah, I'm never gonna remember.
And a jetpack, not a jump pack, a jetpack.
Yeah, that's right. That's fine. Pretty and I'll force you to learn the difference at Adepticon, because we're playing the doubles together. But
I'm knowing that, so I don't need to know difference.
Yeah. It would probably be that I would just stick to it, because it's still kind of bugging me a little bit that that guy's in enjoyment because he felt bad kicking other people, which is not what he wants, was based fully on a level of borderline harassment in some cases. Actually, it's not borderline.
So you're saying the Knight army did that well?
I mean, he was winning like most of his games from victory point standpoints, and they were going kind of quick. But it was tough to beat him. And I mean, at the end of the day, I had this remembrancer idea in my head. I just wasn't fully sure how to execute it until probably 6 months ago. I had it in my head the whole time. So if you've got like a full Knight army and you've got a remembrancer, then like, your remembrancer has to be attached to like a Knight Armiger or something, just moving like 16 inches, and your remembrancer's just like sprinting faster than a Space Marine around the table. Kind of breaks the immersion a little bit. Yeah. And then it makes it difficult for them to score campaign points on other things, because they're not doing challenges. They're not doing sweeping advances in a lot of cases. It makes it tough for them, and then that person's got the potential to come back and be like, well, this is because it doesn't work with my army. And it's like, well, you know what, I didn't That's why I didn't
brought
want
the
you to bring
army,
the
not you.
army. Yeah, it's why I tried to tell you can't bring it. Like
It is interesting though, because the general what I've read about the night list is more so that they are not really that competitive, and most decent lists that are set up to work with against vehicles and a couple of contemptors and a Leviathan or something can take a night list out pretty handily. So
I think it's like anything, right? Like you can optimize it and min max it and tweak it and do all that other. And in him being built to sort of take down other knights and other vehicles, I think he had a high rate of high strength fire, right? And then they're fast as sin too.
Yeah.
So
They
like,
move very, very quick.
And
yeah.
also the
So if
point
he's
that-
getting into close combat with things that only have crack grenades, like
yeah.
Good luck.
that thing's not doing great against it. So yeah, I think when you're up against a ton of dreadnoughts and stuff, then yeah, it's not, because if you kind of go in, it's almost like a rock paper scissors if you're putting knights and Fury of the Ancients and Armored Breakthrough together in a list, because I think vehicles do really well against knights, and then knights do and dreadnoughts do really good against vehicles, and then I think knights do pretty good against dreadnoughts or something like that. I might have that inverted.
I think it's dreadnoughts over the knights, and then the knights are over the vehicle.
Yeah, and then I think the vehicles over the dreadnoughts or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. And so, it's just one of those scenarios where it's like perfect mission versus perfect opponent on the perfect table to give them like the perfect advantage. But I didn't watch his games like intently. So, I don't know what he was up against either. I don't know what that guy's attitude was like, which could have exacerbated it. Like, who knows? But again, if he didn't think that it was going to go that way, and honestly, like from the amount of outcry, you'd swear we were going to have like 20 players in those buckets, and like to have no Armored Breakthrough and then two others from that category, like So I said at the beginning of the tournament or the event, because they weren't in the tournament, I said in the beginning of the event, I was like, I can't make these guys play each other for 6 games. We're just going to have to put them in general population. And I apologized for it up front. I said, if you end up against them and you have a bad game, I'm sorry. Like I shouldn't have listened to the outcry to begin with. So I think in the future, it's just going to be like, look, this is the way that we're running the event. If if this is that disruptive to you, maybe this isn't the event for you.
Yeah.
Right?
How far?
I know.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know it for Adepticon, we're not allowing named characters in the tag team event, and we had some pushback on it, but it wasn't pushback that they were upset that they couldn't use named characters. It was pushback that the only way we're communicating it right now was through Facebook Messenger or Facebook group posts, and it was people who don't use Facebook are still out there, and they aren't going to know those rules and might show up and have an army that doesn't fit the list, right? Because they built it around Karn or something like that. So and we found out we can probably email out the same restrictions to the email list, and everybody has to have an email to be signed up for Adepticon. Yeah. So that was kind of the feedback we got there, and
I had put all those things like into the players pack, because they had I had to provide basically an outline for the event before the Heresy 2.0 rules had even dropped. Yeah. So I had to kind of like fly blind, and it was like there was almost no room for forgiveness on that to begin with. And it's like, yeah, I don't have the rules, but I can't expect them to be wildly different from 1.0 in terms of power level. There's no way I would have predicted that dreadnoughts would have became so absolutely powerful. And Fury of the Ancients would go from being like, a pretty low tier list to all of a sudden like holding things down and just slamming into them. But we had a few people cry out about their named characters too, and I said, like, look, man, like this was actually something that came out last year, and it was something that the community player base wanted. They didn't want named characters in anything but the mega battle, so that's what we're going to keep doing. It's somewhat like, I don't want 5 Sanguiniuses flying around, because that doesn't meet the narrative experience that we're trying to build. And so yeah, in the future, I'm just going to stick to it, and it's just going to be like, you know what, man, like we have mechanics that kind of require you to have infantry. And the reality is that I wasn't actually banning knights or banning armored breakthrough even, or Fury of the Ancients. It's just that you would have to build those in ways that they weren't entirely dreadnoughts, or that they weren't entirely tanks, or that they weren't entirely knights. Your knights would have to come in as an allied detachment, right? Like, so it's not that I was like, well, you can't use these things, like they're banned because they're too good. It was just no, like, you had some restrictions where, per like 500 points, you could take, a dreadnought or a knight. Or per, and if you wanted a vehicle, like you could have 2 vehicles per 1 infantry unit. Like reasonable things in my mind anyway. That it was just like, look, like you can still play armored breakthrough if that's your thing. It's just now it's like an armored breakthrough. It's a convoy, and you've got units to get out of their rhinos or get out of their land raiders and take objectives and lay down fire and interact with things, right? But you've still got tank support, and you're still primarily a tank column. Or, you've got Fury of the Ancients, because Fury of the Ancients does not require you to exclusively take dreadnoughts. You can still take elite units and foot units and bikes, and you can take tons of stuff in that list. But anyways, it's a very long-winded way to say, like, if I could have done something differently, it's that I just would have stuck with what I was doing. And even the promise on repeat that, like, I'm going to adjust these as rules and stuff come out so that way I can actually understand them, was just insufficient for some people.
So speaking of rules, that's the other question I wanted to ask, right? So we all know that there's a lot of ambiguity, unclear, confusing, downright nonsensical rules in the current edition as it stands. Did you have any loud disagreements or arguments, or were people pretty, I mean, it's narrative.
No,
just doing the whole, yeah, we'll just make it work. And if it doesn't make sense, we're just going to roll with it and make it work anyway, for pretty much.
Yeah. There was a couple of things where, it was like, oh, well, my group had interpreted it like this, so this is what we're playing. And, I had to kind of be like, well, I understand why you'd think that at like first glance, but this is why the majority of us play it this way instead. And so that's the route that we're going to take. And he was just like, yeah, cool. Like, it's your show, man. I'm not going to fight it. And then I should have wrote it down, because there was some kind of like crazy rule interaction where it was just like the perfect storm. And they were like, we're not upset, we just don't know what to do. And I was like, man, I don't know what to do either. And so I was just like, 1, 2, 3, it's this, 4, 5, 6, it's this, roll a dice. And they were like, cool, yeah, sounds good. They went off and rolled their dice and just kept playing. There was no big rules arguments. Really at all. There was kind of a one feels badsy moment, I think, where someone was playing Day of Revelation and it was ambush, and they got upset that they got like tabled super early, but they only deployed like 1 or 2 units on the table and tried to do their Day of Revelation thing against a full drop pod army. And I was kind of like, man, this one's not my fault. Like,
oh, that just sounds horrible.
Yeah, I was like, you maybe should have just deployed your entire army. Like, you don't have to deploy your Day of Revelation by Deep Strike. Like, you can just start them on the table.
That's a worst case scenario.
Yeah. And I was like, what do you want me to do with that?
The one thing you can do with a dreadnought army is make sure you get the right things in the right place. Or I mean, a drop pod army is get the right things in the right place to take out a few units on the table.
Yeah.
That's like, that literally is the worst case scenario for that list, especially if you're not putting a bunch of stuff. That's why when I run mine, I plan on having a couple of Spartans on the table, right? So, with the dudes in them, and it's if I get beat because that all gets taken out, I get beat because that all gets taken out, but it's not because I'm leaving just a couple of units on the table. So.
Yeah, exactly. And he was all infantry. So it was kind of like, man, like, I understand, but what do you want me to do? Like, I literally asked him, I was like, why don't you just deploy everything on the table? And he's like, well, because I'm playing Day of Revelation. I was like, but why didn't you just deploy everything on the table? You knew he had a drop pod army. Yeah. Like, even if you weren't playing ambush, he's gonna like just pepper around you. Like, so I felt bad for him, but not too bad, because I was like, this is a learning opportunity. But not for me.
I like
at
that.
The risk of sounding arrogant, but
I've also limited my drop pod army because one of my units, my heavy unit for my word bearers, is heavy warp fire, which don't even get to do anything the turn they come in because they're forced to disembark, and then they can't shoot any blast weapons. So
yeah, it's tough.
But I never plan on winning any games anyway. So
yeah, me neither. But yeah, there was no major arguments.
That's good. Cool.
Yeah, it was like for the most part, people were just resolving it on their own, and we might have to go make the odd ruling, but nobody like got upset at the ruling. And then there was that one instance where I was like, dude, I have no idea. Like that is super confusing. Roll a dice. And they were cool to just take that and keep going. It was like the ref letting them play through.
Alex, I had one question left for me. Like how far out in advance did you have the player package? Did you have to have it out before the 2.0 rules when you turned everything in, or oh wow, okay.
Yeah, like because that's when ticket sales were going up and it had to be on the site. So
Gotcha.
I have to typically have something in so that the ticket sales can go up in the summertime, like in the springtime, like usually around May.
Okay.
I think. And then I think 2.0 came out in June. So it was like, hey, we're following in a similar suit as last year. And the whole post actually had said like we're, last year was a success. People liked it. So we're just going to follow that suit and follow those list building restrictions. And, they're going to be a little bit different to be a little more inclusive, but, and a little less restrictive. And that still wasn't enough for some people.
Well, bravo to you having to deal with the major change in the rules like that.
And
well, thank
bravo
you
for you for how well you did it. It sounds like you pulled it off marvelously, honestly.
Well, I think you'll have to wait until Kyle's description because that's my bias. From what I heard
from what I've heard from Kyle, he's been very complimentary of you.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good. But yeah, a few things to improve on for next year, and I got to figure out something to beat the remembrancer mechanic because I think a lot of people loved that.
It sounds awesome. I'll be honest to say. So
yeah, we'll probably do it at Beta Garmin just because people liked it at LVO.
Are you planning on doing something similar currently for Beta Garmin coming up at Adepticon?
I wasn't going to, but everybody liked this and it's easy to port over to it, so I probably will. Because I for example, I know that somebody managed to take pics of Horus like falling to one knee on Beta Garmin from the wounds that Russ gave him. And I know that intelligence made it back to Loyalist Command.
That's all.
So yeah.
Speaking as someone who is playing in the Beta Garmin stuff, I am super looking forward to more stuff based not just on the fact that it's Adepticon and it's Heresy and it's people I haven't seen for years and everything else, but also based more also because it's a night, because loving everything I'm hearing about this.
Yeah, hell yeah, awesome. And you know what? Actually, I think I just came up with an idea, so I'm gonna write that down real quick. I'm not gonna do it for Beta Garmin, but I'll do it like for next year.
I have to say, man, I don't know. Anybody else got any questions or comments on LVO or anything to go over?
Not at the moment, no.
Yeah,
well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. It's good insight and coming into Adepticon, good feedback on what I hope to be ready for and have everyone shows up. So
yeah,
we get to see Jack
forward to your event.
Jack dancing like the ghost from Caddyshack.
Yeah.
That needs to go to Jacob as the title of this episode, the one where Jack dances.
Oh my lord.
Hey, Jack posts him, he'll never put that up anyway.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Dan, I'm looking forward to the doubles because I didn't actually get to play it all last year because I only had signed up for one event, and then the only time I could get my COVID test to like get back into Canada was during that time. So I just spent the rest of the time being drunk and buying stuff at the vendor hall, and I got drunk and so if you didn't make it to ISFAN 5 last year, like expect the same sort of chicanery from me where I'm just going to be hammered and doing things on the fly.
Yeah, I think if you remember, I played your army at the ISFAN event with your buddy or whatever was playing?
Yeah, Murray Cutler. I was gonna try to play Dan at the same time, but I was already kind of like half cut as we were getting started, and it was very labor intensive to kind of run this event the way that I was running it, because we typically have like a few mega battle tables and then a few tables around where people can play like 1v1s if that's more their speed, and then those 1v1s have effects on the mega battle tables. And I think I got halfway through my turn 1 with Dan, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, just hang on. And I went and grabbed like Murray, and I was like, you're getting a crash course in Raven Guard. I just dropped him at the table and said, you're playing this guy now. And I walked away.
The best part about that was my psyker blew up Cadus Nex's brain.
Oh yeah. It was his like maiden voyage out, and I don't think he did anything. I think Maurice's head just exploded.
It was a good game.
Yeah. He got good in second edition though. So I'm happy about that.
I didn't.
Like running around. Yeah. I didn't say I've won anything. It's just that Katie's Nex actually does things now. He just doesn't die immediately. And he's got some cool like deployment rules still, but and his hand cannons are actually pretty decent now. They've got rending, which is cool. They didn't have before. Yeah, right on. Well, thanks guys. I appreciate you guys having me on and taking the time. And if you need anything else, let me know. And otherwise I'll see you guys in like in 2 months at Adepticon.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alex.
Brothers.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming on. So I think with that, we'll actually try to wrap up tonight. Tonight, I've been John, and I've been joined by
Dan.
Duncan.
Jack.
Jamie.
and stay accountable to yourselves and to your buddy and your hobby. And I think I'll ever pronounce that correctly. And we'll see you next time.